Hey there, welcome to the Jeff and Heidi Show, where you're going to have the opportunity to listen to and learn from everyday entrepreneurs. All right, welcome to the Jeff and Heidi Show. We're excited to have our guest with us today, Justin Nimergood. I'm Jeff Heggie, and I've got my co-host with me, Heidi Anderson from ECIBFS.com. And we're excited to talk with Justin. So just to tell you a little bit about Justin, my connection to Justin was back in January. I had an opportunity to be a guest on the Concierge Coaches Show. And unfortunately, Justin wasn't on that show. I was with Bruce, but because of the connection with Bruce and Justin being a co-host on that show, I was able to get to know him, and he ended up being a part of our Inner Circle Mastermind. And the more I've got to know Justin, I really respect and appreciate everything he's doing. And I think the things that he's doing and his story are exactly what our guests like to hear about, and the journey he's been on and the things he's doing. So I'm excited to tell you a little bit about him. So I'll just read briefly some of his bio, and then I'll just let you take it over, Justin, and give it some real justice behind it. But with 20 plus years of serial entrepreneurial and intrapreneurial experience from his first e-commerce business when he was 11 to his current omnichannel business, Justin's greatest passion at work has always been connecting with, inspiring, and helping other people. Justin is approaching his 6th year as the president and CEO of Nimergood Company, an educational community focused on developing leaders through business coaching, management consulting, and motivational speaking and training. Known as a charismatic, competitive, and methodical leader, Justin has consistently helped business professionals and their teams destroy their goals by fostering the power of the channel. So Justin, welcome. We're excited to have you here, and excited for our listeners to hear your story and get some of your advice and experience. So tell us a little bit more about yourself and what you're doing and those sort of things.
Yeah, well, first off, thanks, Jeff and Heidi, for having me on here today. I've been looking forward to this time here together. And you know, to your point, Jeff, as we've gotten to know one another, I just have, the ultimate respect for you and Heidi as well. So, just a little bit more about myself, pretty, I would say, normal upbringing, in Texas. I did my undergrad at UT in Austin. And then following college, like many that were my age in the early 2000s, I went off and thought, corporate America was, where it was at, and started my career with Cisco systems. And, Cisco is actually, where I learned a lot about the power of the channel, right? As you said in your introduction to my bio, channel is really something, it's a niche focus area. It's a specialist expertise. And it's something that I was fortunate enough to be brought up in, a household with a father that had some familiarity with it as well. So, really got my channel chops, I should say, from Cisco. Spent 6 years there, climbed the corporate ladder, as you say. But I eventually hit a glass ceiling there, and I was faced with a decision, and this was in December of 2013. Of, do I put in another 5 or so years in the current position, having hit that glass ceiling, and continue to try to climb the ranks at a Cisco or another like corporate company? Or do I venture off and start something of my own and really, give entrepreneurship a full-fledged try? And, I was starting to get into personal development right around then. I went to Date with Destiny, which is a, pretty intense 6-day boot camp, Tony Robbins boot camp, I'll call it, right? And that December, when I came back from that event, it had become clear to me that I was meant to start my own business, right? I came back from that. I actually ended up 2 weeks later going to the Business Mastery event as well. So that was in January. And once I came back from Business Mastery, I basically put in my 2 weeks notice at Cisco. And with little understanding, or I should say game plan, of what business I was going to do and how I was going to monetize it, I just knew I went, full in, right? And for anyone that's gone through Tony's training, he's all about playing full out, right? And you have to be all in, especially if you're going to start a business. Now, when I coach people nowadays, I tell them, hey, you want to have a little bit more seamless transition, so I don't recommend doing exactly what I did. It did end up working out for me, but it took a little bit more time to get things going, admittedly. So I ended up, parting ways from Cisco. And the first thing I did, though, and I would say still to this day, probably one of the things that has allowed me to have some of the success and opportunities I've had as an entrepreneur, was I started writing a book, and it was a business memoir. Actually, I have a copy of it here with me today. It's called Intrapreneurship, Changing Business Culture from the Inside Out. And it was really just a motivational business memoir of my accounts, my time at Cisco, and otherwise, by the way, because I had other positions. I did some time with Morgan Stanley and other companies as well. And I really used that as my token piece to start to get entrepreneurial type opportunities. It took me about 6 months to write it. It was published in October of 2017. I'm sorry, not October, 2014, excuse me. Getting my dates confused here. October of 2014. And then from there, I really just started hunting for, any type of speaking opportunity, whether it was pro bono or not, any type of opportunity to coach anyone, pro bono or not. And anyone that knows, when you're an entrepreneur and you're starting your business, you have to take on a lot of that, work for free, just to make a name for yourself, right? After about 6 months of doing largely pro bono work, I landed my first coaching client, right? And then that led to another one because you get a referral, if you do a good job with it. And now I started to gain momentum. And I tell people it really took me, truthfully, about 2.5 years to really start to crack true profit. Luckily I was financially disciplined and had some, stored away to keep the business going. But I'd say by 2016, 2017, I really started to crack profit and started to actually build my team. And today, now, in good company, it doesn't just consist of me. It consists of 12 people all over the globe. People in Latvia, people in Italy, several people across the U.S. that are all part of the team. Not all are W-2 employees. A lot of them are 1099s, but they're part of our team and they're part of our mission of going out and helping truly refine and inspire the next generation of leaders out there in the marketplace. So, yeah, it's been a fun journey, Jeff and Heidi. I'm excited, for the next chapter. Obviously, we're a little bit at odds right now with COVID, and I think everyone's scrambling to figure out how to pivot, to weather the storm right now, because this is something unprecedented in our, in the history of time, right? At least in my time here on Earth.
Right.
I want to go back really quickly because you talk about, at Cisco doing the channel marketing, and then you talked about your omni-channel business. Just for people listening who may not really understand what that means, can you describe a little bit more about what the whole concept of channel is?
Yeah.
Except for people who channel spirits,
Yeah. Channel, a synonym for channel, you can say partnership, right? So really what I was focused on at Cisco, and really what I specialize in when I consult with companies, is helping them grow through the channel, i.e. through partnerships. A lot of companies, historically, they believe in, I call it old shovel and dirt model, which is, hey, if you want, to generate more revenue, you have to hire more sales reps. And that's honestly, especially in today's market, is the furthest thing from the truth. I mean,
Right.
If you look at just the Inner Circle Mastermind, you look at this opportunity to be on your podcast, or obviously, Jeff, you came on Bruce and my show as well. These are partnerships, right? We're forging and facilitating partnerships, fostering partnerships with individuals across the globe that are helping us elevate our brand, or we're helping them elevate their brand, or ideally both, right? A true synergistic effort. So channel to me is just partnership. And that's really what I help companies do from a consulting perspective is, everyone wants to grow, or virtually every company wants to grow, but I teach them how to do it through partnerships, which, by the way, are immensely economical on the balance sheet because you're not having to take on payroll taxes, health benefits, you name it. When you hire a W-2 employee, these are all things you have to consider.
Right.
But when you find partners and ideally you structure your partner programs correctly, you're not taking on any of that. You're just honestly, I say, finding that sweet spot in the Venn diagram that you care about and they care about jointly. And so it's really a true win-win scenario.
Right.
And I think there's more and more of those opportunities, but people just don't recognize them. And I think, pretty much every company is going to have different opportunities, even on a completely different level than some of the things you're working with. I look at some of the courses and different things I work with, and you look at your affiliate programs, where I can joint venture with someone that they can sell my program and get some profits off of that, where they don't have to go through the process of putting the program together. And I don't have to hire them as a W-2 to go out and sell that program, but they're taking. Right. So that's awesome. And one of
go ahead.
I was just gonna. Well, actually, this is a little bit different conversation. So go ahead with where you were going.
No, I was just going to say
Heidi.
it's always been a concept in our industry in credit card processing, merchant services, because you have the agents, you have the ISO, which we are, and then you have agents, and so we have like web designers, we have people who help medical practices improve their bottom line, and they bring us their merchant services, and then we refer people to them to get websites built, and so it's always been really indigenous, I guess, to our industry, but it's always interesting to learn how to expand that, like if there's something like we haven't thought about, directions to go.
Well, and partnerships can mean different things to different people and different companies. You both have referred to affiliate and referral programs, which is sort of what I call foundational to partnerships in the partner ecosystem. That's a pretty basic partner practice. But as you work up the stack, you're dealing with, I call them technology or solution providers or consulting providers that have a deeper skill set. Might be able to, for example, if I engage with a partner that has an expertise in change management, right? That is a skill set that's pretty refined. And so you can really take advantage of partners to deliver immense value to your end user clients. Again, at little to no cost to your overhead, right? And that's really the name of the game, especially in today's market, in today's economy right now with COVID. People aren't looking to hire a bunch of people right now. I mean, hiring is, it's at a drip. It's most companies are not hiring, or they're laying people off, unfortunately, or furloughing people. Very few are actually hiring. But for the ones that actually want to grow, you can actually grow in this way, again, with minimizing your risk tolerance through, overhead. So it's a practice that I see virtually every successful company right now on the planet is doing some sort of channel or partner program.
Right.
You have to have something.
So I guess for the sake of our listeners too, we all have listeners that'll be thinking, man, this is probably something I should be looking at. This is an opportunity that I'm not taking advantage of. Who is your avatar? Who is your ideal client? And, so if a listener is hearing these things, they know this is something he can help me with.
Yeah. So I share with, listeners and people that my sweet spot that I've, finally figured out, and it took me a while to get here, is companies that are going or on track to go IPO. They're typically mid-market companies, sub 100 million, but definitely, more than 10 million, right? So they're kind of in that range where they've demonstrated a certain level of success. They have some of the foundational and structural people, process, technology things built out, but they lack channel infrastructure, I say, right? Or channel chops. And so I'm able to quickly come in, figure out what's going on, help them co-create a plan to execute against that. And then I help them with, the early on executables in their first couple of years of channel development. By year 3 or 4, they're usually well on their way. And, I'm usually working with another couple companies by then, right? That's kind of my sweet spot engagement is, working with a company for 3 to 5 years to, again, build and help them create momentum with the channel. And then ideally, if you do it right, then at that point they can it's a self-fulfilling prophecy from there.
Right. So as a company like that fits into that description, if I was the owner of that company and I'm wondering, I wonder if this is applicable to me, what is it that me as the owner of that company, as the entrepreneur that's running that company, should recognize that, yeah, this is something that we're doing, that bringing someone like Justin in could get us to where we're trying to go a lot faster than trying to do it on our own.
Yeah, again, I think one of the key elements is IPO, looking to go IPO, or that in itself is just, and the reason channel is so important for that is in the investor community, when they evaluate multiples and when they evaluate, how to, value companies, channel it's got a long tail to it. So it's, again, I'll go back to the direct versus channel example, meaning direct sales versus channel sales. In direct sales, you sell a deal, you get paid for the deal, that deal is over, or that deal is only going to hit the books for that particular fiscal year. In channel, it's the gift that keeps on giving. So you sell a deal, that partner ideally is going to take care of that client for the next 3 to 5 years, or perhaps they're on a contract that's a 3-year contract. But in either case, it's a long tail sales cycle, which the investor community sees, very highly, right? That's what they're looking to invest in, is companies that have a financial outlook past their current fiscal year. So that's one key element. And I'd say another key element is a company that has a decent direct sales team built out, but is finally ready to move beyond that and doesn't want to incur huge operational and overhead expenses, to continue growing top line. Those are the two common things I see. Because if they don't mind taking on the overhead expenses, the ramp time for direct sales still is shorter than channel. So there is an element of patience that they have to exhibit with channel. But again, the trade-off is tremendous, right? If they're able to look beyond their current fiscal year, the payoff is huge for them if they're willing to be patient and work through the channel mechanics.
What is one of your favorite success stories? You don't have to mention the company, but just like where you took somebody and really turned them around and they blossomed under your guidance.
Yeah, so in 2018, and I would say this is probably one of my favorite and best clients. It's probably the deal that really set me on a good financial track for a good company. It was our best fiscal year. We've grown every fiscal year, but that really, we were doing $250,000 that year, probably actually closer to 300,000. And that really set us on a different trajectory. It was a software company, sales engagement company, and they were largely a dual partner shop. It was two partners that had been doing about $5 million a year between them. They had some engineers as well that supported their product, but they wanted to take their sales to the next level. And I actually helped them implement not only a channel sales team, but a direct sales team as well. We did hire a couple direct sales reps, but on a financial compensation plan that was indicative of their balance sheet that they could handle. And within a year, we were able to build, I think it was like $20 million in pipeline. We closed several $1 million in deals. And, the financial health of that company is, 10x better than it was, when I came into that engagement. So I think that one is one of my favorite ones. You know, it's also one of the longer engagements I had. That was about an 24-month engagement with them. And, you know, still to this day, they're continuing to grow because I, you know, left them with the keys better off than, you know, when I took them over. So I was acting chief revenue officer for them. Another one, I actually worked with a concierge catering company. And this was actually interesting because it was the first time. It's a industry that I've never, you know, really worked in or done too much work in before. So that in itself was actually fun for me because I like complexity. I like taking on new challenges. And we totally went after the channel with them. We didn't hire any direct sales reps. We totally went after the partner ecosystem for them. We launched, you know, partner newsletters. We launched open houses where they would have an open house for, you know, food tastings and whatnot. And that company grew by, I think it was 300% in 1 year, just through the activations of channel and some of the tactics that we put in place for them. So those are a couple of the ones that come to mind for me.
Awesome.
So you don't have any like specific industry you work with. You like the challenge of taking on.
Well, I mean, I would say historically, the most engagements I've had have been in technology, just because of my background at Cisco, and you know, most of my career has been spent in technology. But you know, occasionally I'll get some oddball requests, like I did from that catering company, and I'm not gonna say no to them as long as they have the right frame of mind about, hey, this channel thing is gonna take a little bit of time to build. That's the key measurement, right? If they're looking, I say hit it and quit it. If they're looking for me to come in and fix them in 3 months, I'm not a turnaround, you know, guy. I'm a guy that builds something that's built to sustain the long haul, if you will.
That's great.
So you've obviously had a lot of success in these things, but you've had a lot of experience in this and in other ventures as an entrepreneur. What would you consider your biggest learning experience, aka failure and learning experience, that you've faced?
Well, I think I'll reference again the earlier story about starting the business without a monetization plan or a true monetization plan, and any clients or any sort of business development lined up whatsoever. Again, I don't coach my current clients on that because again, that's probably not the ideal way. I eventually made it work, but I think, you know, as I look back on that, my ramp time could have been decreased if I had been more thoughtful and methodical with my approach to it. So, you know, that's sort of my learning experience. It was a costly one, to be honest. I mean, I burned through a lot of savings, you know, to be able to get to the point where I was finally turning profit. So it was a costly learning experience. I eventually got where I wanted to go, but you know, if I could do it again, I probably would have been more thoughtful and methodical, and maybe not have left quite as early. I probably would have done another 6 months at Cisco, you know, in conjunction with while I was building, you know, the business on the side, kind of thing.
Yeah. Okay. Now, there's a few things about you I didn't know until this morning. I knew you were back and forth between Texas and California. I hadn't realized that it was at University of Texas at Austin is where you got your education, but then I didn't know you got your master's at Pepperdine. I didn't know you were involved in NLP, all those sort of things. And so you're very well educated. But in addition to that, what are your thoughts and feelings for anyone listening as an entrepreneur, as a business owner, or as someone that's wanting to do something like you've done? What are your thoughts and feelings on education, personal development, continuing education, those sort of things?
Yeah, I mean, it's necessary. I think in the entrepreneurial space, formal university education, if you will, is less important. I hate to say that, but it is.
Yeah.
Although, if you can get your degree from a entrepreneurial type university, in Pepperdine, I was very fortunate. Pepperdine is like built for entrepreneurship, and the program that I went through at Pepperdine was an entrepreneurial focused master's program. So that actually added value to me. But I'd say in general, if someone is we'll just use this example. Someone's in corporate America today, and they're considering taking the plunge and becoming an entrepreneur, starting their own business. I would say, personal development is a must. Listen to a podcast every morning or every day at some point in time. Make sure you're reading personal development oriented books. And I would say from a accreditation perspective, courses like an NLP, I would put with higher weighting than, going and getting a master's program, candidly.
Awesome.
Now, I've obviously done both, and it's been helpful because you're stacking value for your end user clients, but I would start there, right? I think Tony Robbins type courses, again, I would put more emphasis there than, again, a master's program where you're going to pay $100,000 for. So
right.
That's just my perspective. I think, there's a lot of different ways you can fix it, but that's what I've seen to be the case. Because entrepreneurship it takes a special person to be an entrepreneur, right? You have to be okay with discomfort, and they don't teach you that in school. They don't.
Right, exactly. And going back to Pepperdine, not too shabby of a campus either, looking over the water there.
It wasn't horrible, although I will tell you that it's a misnomer because I only had my orientation and my graduation there on the Malibu campus, to be frank. I did most of my classes at their Irvine campus, and then they had a West LA campus as well, where I did probably, another 40% of the classes. So it is a gorgeous campus, but that's mostly where the undergrads do their time, actually, not the master's programs. So.
Okay. All right. I knew you had done some of Tony's stuff. And obviously it's immerse yourself, don't dabble. And you really took that on. And I really like that, you committed yourself to some of those and, you went into the business mastery and then took that and it's put you where you are. Like you say, there maybe were some learning experiences that, maybe you would have done something a little different, waited another 6 months. But part of, I think, probably a lot of your success comes from the fact that you didn't dabble, that you committed yourself and you threw yourself out there. So from an entrepreneur perspective for our listeners, just share your thoughts on that too, on the, don't dabble. If you're going to do it, go ahead.
Yeah. And so I would agree with you on that front. And I would say the key is to set goal. I mean, it's so cliche, but set proper goals for yourself, right? Set goals with timelines to them. Don't just say, I want to start a business. Say, I will start a business by October 1st of this year, right? And then you back into, you basically reverse engineer all the milestones from that goal. That's really important. I think a lot of people who've never been an entrepreneur before and start that process, they're very laissez-faire with their goal setting, and it shows in their results. And so, to your point, I didn't leave myself a life raft when I left corporate America, and it also helped me actually get things going. Again, I probably would have done it differently, but it forced me into massive action, as we say. And that's probably one of the most important skills is you have to take massive action when you're an entrepreneur because no one else is going to feed you. You have to find your own food. If you don't find your food, you don't eat. It's that simple as an entrepreneur. And that's what people don't realize. So, all the activities that you have a boss that's on your ass telling you to do in corporate America, you have to be your own boss, and you have to tell yourself that, you have to kick your own ass to get into gear and get shit done.
You have to be self-motivated, definitely. But it also, I think it helped, like, since you took from your corporate job, everything you learned about creating, that channel marketing and creating those kind of relationships, it might've been a natural for you anyway, which is probably what got you that job. But the fact that you really learned and developed that, and then you took that and made it into where you're helping other people do what you know how to do. You learn more, obviously, by doing, right? And whereas I went to college and got my degree in business, I didn't learn anything about business. I learned how to work for other people. So then I went and I worked for entrepreneurs, and I learned, a lot about, and I love the change. I love the fact that every day was different, and that I had some control over my own life. But I think that's important and helpful. And maybe, I don't know, what would you say to somebody who wants to become an entrepreneur about when you decide what you want to do as an entrepreneur, you know, obviously having that background in it? Am I making sense?
I think what you're speaking to is having corporate skills, transferable skills that I could take to entrepreneurship. Is that sort of the?
Well, just that you learned like channel marketing. Like I've never learned really how to do channel marketing. Yeah. I would have a hard time going out and coaching somebody else to do that. So the fact that you had that skill that you learned in your job and you took it and you made that your part of your coaching program.
Yeah. Okay. So to that end, yeah, I think I was very fortunate in that regard, and it is something that has allowed me to have that kind of that value add to my clients. Is I've seen sort of larger organizations. I've been a part of larger organizations, so I've seen well-run programs and tactics and skills, and I've learned those and mastered a lot of them in some ways that's transferable to entrepreneurs and smaller scale businesses that will help them scale and grow at a different level. So to your point, yeah, I would say that is valuable. And for anyone, listen, I think some of what we're seeing today is the younger generation thinks they can just graduate college or not even go to college and start their own business, and it's a wild success.
Right.
And it's difficult for me to watch some of that, because it's like, I think there still is value in going and working for a company for a couple years and understanding how those processes and ecosystems work together. And then, once you've learned some of that, then you start your business. Because I'll tell you, I wouldn't have been successful if I started my business right out of college. There's no way. I didn't know what the hell I was doing. But after you learn and you see something that's well run, and you take some of those amazing skills with you, then you can truly create success with your own business. So that's my recommendation. So, these kids today, I hate to say it, but they're all, it's the Me Too shit, and hey, I can Instagram this and that. And I mean, I'm obviously somewhat active on social media, but I think it's just, they don't understand what the hell it means to monetize a business. I hate to say it. And a lot of them, I think, are going to fail and have to move back in with mom and dad, or maybe they're going to continue living with mom and dad for longer than they want. I don't know.
Right.
So.
Right. That, you both made really good points there. When I graduated, I had majored in entrepreneurship, and that was my mindset, was I want to run my own business. And I did have, I owned some real estate. I owned a mini storage facility, those sort of things. But I would say my time after I graduated, I started working in the banking industry, and my time there taught me more about running a business than my formal education had. Now, going back to what Heidi had mentioned too, I left the banking industry, and the company I started then in 2005 was Kodiak Mountain Stone, which was a manufacturer of artificial stone veneer. And I had a lot of people say, were you a mason? Were you a home builder? How did you get involved in it? And it was none of that. I was a cowboy. But how much easier would that have been if I had that background and, had been working in something tied to that industry or something? Just like in my coaching business, having the experience of being an entrepreneur for 15, 20 years, having the experience of being in the banking industry and working with entrepreneurs and that sort of stuff. So yeah, I think that really ties into it. And as Justin mentioned, just coming out of school, or not even going to school, having 10,000 followers on Instagram as your qualification, all of a sudden you're a business owner. And yeah, there's going to be some difficult lessons learned there. I agree with that.
I think for a while they can maybe like sell ads or get, sponsors and stuff that, unless there's some real substance there, they're not going to be able to keep that up. But then they'll find something else to do.
I think it's fool's gold, actually. I mean, I think anyone can have success one year. And it's like I've heard a lot of the personal development gurus say, cracking 1 million for them wasn't hard. Or not that it wasn't hard, like that was possible. What was challenging is maintaining that. Like,
Right.
you know, a lot of people can crack $1 million, or a lot of people can have a flash in the pants successful year. It's, can you do that year in and year out? And that's why I'm so proud of having, you know, In Good Company in particular. Probably the thing I'm the most proud of is that we're 6 years in, 6+ years in. You know, once you surpass the 5-year mark, I think they say that's kind of, you've elevated to another level. So that I'm probably the most proud of, to be honest, is that we've survived and thrived in some ways for 5+ years.
So we're getting to our time limit here, but what a couple things I want to do before we get into talking about how people can stay in touch with you and stuff like that. You know, I talked about NLP and we just kind of flew over that, just assuming everyone knows what NLP is. But for those that don't, share what NLP is.
Yeah, NLP is an ancient art form. No, it's a NLP basically is good communication, right? So it stands for Neuro Linguistic Programming, and it's the way your mind processes, you know, not everything from nonverbal cues to words to tonality to be a better communicator. So it's a skill that I think everyone could benefit from. Few will actually take the time to go through the process and learn it, but everyone from, you know, presidents who are generally pretty good communicators, I would say, you know, with their public speeches and whatnot, to a lot of the actors and actresses that you see today that are super successful have gone through NLP-based training to be a better communicator. It's something that I think is very effective, especially in sales, because in sales, you have to find that common link with people in order to build rapport and to obviously move them through the process. So NLP is extremely additive in that regard. And I just recommend it for anyone. I mean, you can benefit from it on personal fronts too. Generally, you'll have happier, healthier relationships, personal relationships with, you know, spouses and significant others if you have been trained on NLP. Is there a
particular program that you would recommend for learning NLP, or are there just lots of them out there, or is there one that is really good?
There's a lot of training out there. I went through it with a gentleman named Dr. Matt, who is based in Hawaii, and he kind of teaches on a basis of Ho'oponopono and kind of Hawaiian-based NLP. But there's a lot of trainers out there. There's 3 different tracks. There's kind of foundation, mastery, and then trainer. So once you're a trainer, you actually can obviously, it gets into hypnosis and deeper level NLP type work. Whereas at the basic level, it's just learning some of the basics of, you know, again, nonverbal cues, eye accessing cues, so on and so forth. So, you know, anyone and everyone, you know, just do your homework on them, I would say. And it's really about finding a trainer that you kind of mesh with, that you find a commonality with, that you think you'll learn well from. And that's what I would say is the most important thing.
Great. Thank you. All right. So now what I want to do, a couple things. Intrapreneurship is, I know you can get it on Kindle and the paperback on Amazon. Is that the best place for people to go, or is there somewhere else they should go? And how do people get in touch with you, follow you, all those sort of things?
Yeah. So yeah, it's on Amazon and Apple, both in the, you know, e-format and paperback format. You know, get in touch with me via my website. I actually have some questionnaires on there, self-guided questionnaires. And for anyone that goes through that process, they'll become eligible to get a free copy of my book, and I'll personally sign it and ship it to them and all that. But my website, you know, has all my services, background on me, my credentials, some of the companies I've worked for and work with, and some of those success stories on there. So that's definitely the best place to find me. It's just my last name, Nimergood.com, and you can find everything you need there. I'm also all over social media too, as you know, mostly focused on LinkedIn these days, but, you know, I'm on Facebook and Instagram as well. So, you know, you can find me out there in the social media world too.
Excellent. And I'll make sure to put those links in the show notes as well.
Yeah, thank you for coming on the show, Justin. Thank you for taking the time to do this.
Absolutely. Appreciate it.
Thank you. It was a blast. I really appreciate you two having me on, and looking forward to staying in contact with our inner circle mastermind here over the coming months and possibly years ahead.
Great. Thank you. We'll see you.